Okay, I'm going to call the Katuitt Fire District Prudential Committee meeting of May 23rd, 2022 to order. We'll start with a roll call. Mark Lynch.
Here.
Charlie Eager.
Here.
Seth Burdick.
Here.
Ray Perone.
Here.
Fran Parks present. Okay. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Flag?
Working on it.
Okay.
It was right there. Sorry, it was right there.
I pledge allegiance to the
The
flag
flag
of the
of the
United States of America and to the
and to the
republic
republic
for which it stands, one nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
with
and justice for
justice
all.
for all.
Thank you. Is there any public comment via chat?
I see nothing.
See nothing. Okay, thank you. And it's written in invisible ink, but I'd like to approve the minutes. Did everybody get a chance to read the minutes from April 25th and May 9th?
Yes.
Yes.
I move to approve the meeting minutes for April 25th
And May 9th?
and May 9th.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the treasurer's report.
Starting with revenue, there's a headline that current collections have fallen below budget, and we're about $90,000 below budget at this point. Water rates are 10% ahead of budget. And the other categories are either ahead or on budget within the water department. The fire department is 11% over budget and includes the some reimbursable expense revenue that I'm going to, with the committee's approval, move to the special revenue fund. And then in the other category, the headline there is the FEMA grant that we received this year for expenses that we incurred the prior year. So overall, from the a revenue standpoint, we are on budget, but the slowing in collections is a little worrying. We'll have to see where we end up in May. Although, as I recall, the collections in May were not overly strong, but they weren't weak either.
So Ray, can you explain that? Why does that change month to month? Are people just not paying their bills? I thought there would be quarterly payments such that there would be a kind of a lump sum 4 times a year.
No, the after the first flush of payments, they tend to come in slowly on a monthly basis. And each month, our target goes up by approximately 8% for each month. So if the collections don't keep pace with that increase in our measurement, we end up looking at at a deficit. And it can happen in 1 month, and it can turn around in the next month, as we saw in the past. It's a little different being that far behind this late in the game. We really only have 2 more months to record and actually just more like 6 weeks to actually get the receipts in. I don't perceive any slowing in the recording by the collector at the town, or slowing in the reporting of those collections to us. So I can only imagine that there has been a slowing, an inexplicable slowing in people making payments on their taxes.
Okay. What is that sentence? Higher liens and interest offset large prior year credit.
If you will recall, a couple of months ago, I indicated that the town had processed a $58,000 credit against prior year taxes. It was issued sometime during the summer for collections made through the end of June. We tried to find out what that was. The town could not give us an answer. They did send me a file, which candidly, I have not had the time to parse out. It's basically a file of all the payments and credits, and to try and find that in that file would be rather difficult. The same difficulty that the town complained that they wouldn't be able to do it. So,
But that's just their way of saying we made an error and we owe you $58,000. It's somewhere in here. No?
not really. It's we approved a rebate of taxes in the amount of $58,000, but we can't tell you which taxpayer that related to and what the reason was for returning those monies to the taxpayer. But you owe us that $58,000, which we paid.
Okay.
Okay.
And what I said was the liens were were higher, and penalty and interest is higher than budgeted, and those actually almost arithmetically offset the $58,000 credit. So that was the reason for that comment. And you can see that a little bit clearer back on the detail page for revenue. Any other questions in revenue before I turn to expenditures? In the expenditure, we really only have one major variance and one minor variance that we will address by transferring funds from the reserve fund or the reserve account. The Prudential is at or below budget for both wages and expenses. The same is true for the fire department, the water department, but Freedom Hall, because we're returning to pre-COVID activity levels for the our maintenance individual, we're going to be over budget on wages in Freedom Hall by a very minor amount, something like $1,000. But the major variance is the interest payment for the second payment on the new bond, which was not reflected in the budget. That was $31,000. So we will be, next month, I will be proposing a motion to move approximately $33,000 from the reserve fund of $45,000 to cover those budget variances. Streetlights are below because of actually no maintenance. And we'll hear about our new maintenance contract later on, or our proposed contract. But electricity is just about at budget, if not a little bit over for this point in the year. But we've actually had no maintenance in the streetlight area. Library, that payment was made on budget. The debt service, as I mentioned, is completed with the variance on interest for the new debt. Benefits are on budget, and we anticipate finishing that year actually at or below budget. And transfers were completed on budget. Any questions on the expenditure side?
Can you explain the asterisks?
Yes. Excuse me. There are 3 items of expense and revenue currently reflected in the general fund that I am proposing to move to the special revenue fund. The revenue and expense are equal. So there's no net impact on the general fund or the special revenue fund, but there are other reasons for doing it. The first item is the reimbursement for workers' comp that we receive for an injury on duty, payments to one of the firefighters. This is approximately $27,000, and we were reimbursed for that. The expense shows up in the wages for the fire department, and the revenue shows up in miscellaneous income under the fire department up above.
How are we reimbursed for that?
Our insurance company reimburses us for workers' comp payments. That's part of our policy. We made a $10,000 deposit, and they reimburse us for anything over that.
Okay, thank you.
The second item is the ambulance collision accident. That's approximately, in round terms, $11,000 that we were reimbursed for that expenditure, again, by insurance. The benefit of moving those two, some $38,000 to the special revenue fund, is an indirect increase in our potential for free cash, since they will result in a positive variance in expenditures that contributes to our free cash calculation. So the reason for doing that is to enhance our free cash calculation at the end of the year. The final item is simply the state fund grants for the radio upgrades, and that's simply to move that grant to the special revenue fund. It really has no impact one way or another on free cash on either the general fund or the special revenue fund, but it does, if you will, clean up the general fund from a revenue and expense item.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So I have a question. So is the special revenue fund the $45,000 that we have for, or I'm not aware of a special revenue fund?
The special revenue fund is really an extension of the general fund.
Oh, okay.
And it's for such things as that we're putting in there, matching revenue and expense items.
Okay. Thank you.
We can make that, take that motion either this week or, at this meeting or the June meeting when we deal with the other reserve transfers and do all those motions at the same time. I circulated it just so you would be aware of what I would be proposing.
Yeah, can we just do all of that in the June meeting?
That would be fine. That would be fine. The only other thing I was going to touch on were the articles on the next page.
Excuse me, Ray, there's a question
Excuse
from,
me, no questions during Ray's report. Thank you.
okay, thanks.
Turning to the articles, there's been a little activity on the articles. The water department one is completed, and as you saw from the script, we are going to be closing that article to the general fund for free cash. The fire station is in process. I think the chief's expectation is that he will expend all of those funds. The water tank balance is a carryover. The deputy's car is substantially, though not completely, completed. I had an exchange of emails with the chief, and he said that they will be using that $600 for accessories that are required to be added to the deputy's SUV. Since they're on call, they often go to an incident directly and therefore need equipment on board their vehicles. So we'll wait till that is completed, and that's one that the Prudential Committee can actually close. The rule being that anything $50,000 or under without any debt can be closed by the Prudential Committee. And then we have the two school property related articles that are carrying over. Were there any other questions on the articles or anything else regarding our April performance? That's all I had then.
Well, thank you. So do we want to go over the assign articles for the for the warrant?
Sure.
So who would like to do Article 1? And I'll do Article 1.
I don't mind. And any of them are fine for me. How many are there total that we have to read?
27, 28,
27.
No, we don't
29.
have, no, we don't have to do all 27. There are some water does it, some
And
fire.
fire.
Yeah. So,
You want to split them 3 ways?
yeah.
Sure.
So how many are there all together for us then? Let's see. So Articles 8, 9, and 10 is fire. 11 through 16 is water. And there are 23 altogether?
29.
29. So 3. So 8 of them are everybody else. So there's 24. So we each get to read 8.
Well, I'll take the ones relating to the bylaws committee, I suppose. If that
So-
makes sense.
Hang on. I'll do 1 through 7.
And then I'll do 16 through to the bylaws committee, because those are they the last ones? Let me look. Sixteen through 25. Or
Okay,
I'll do.
Say it again, Seth, 16 through
Would it
what?
be, I think it would be 16 through 25. Because that's the last financial one, and then 25 through, or I could do less, because that only leaves you with 4. But yours are long, this last one especially. I could do. But that works for me, I don't mind. And you could do 26, or no, 25, 16 through 24 I would do, and then you do 25 through 29. The last one is especially wordy.
Yeah, we could have made 29 a lot shorter, I suppose, but. And we just read these out loud, and then if there's questions, we respond to questions, or can we do a little
Well, Ken will then
summary?
write about whether anybody wants to comment, and then he directs the questions.
yes, right. And then he'll read the article again. He repeats it.
Okay,
Okay. All right. The Policy Advisory Committee, Seth, do you want to give a report?
Yes, let me just go to my minutes. So we had a meeting now almost a month ago, I guess, with the beginning of this month. And these were the takeaways. So there was an aspect of old business that we discussed, which was, if you remember, we talked about a historical documents policy that we talked about a couple of times, but didn't really get anywhere in terms of us. I mean, we discussed it a little bit. I didn't really sense much.
What is the proposed policy?
The proposed policy was that essentially that we maintain a record of all of the proposed changes to the bylaws, the proposed policies and warrants.
Oh, Jesus.
Right, well,
Yeah,
that was
and
the
who's-
response last time we brought that up. So, I mean,
Who's
I don't know
supposed
how
to do this?
that was, again, that would be part of the policy. Who would do it?
Yeah,
Charlie?
no,
I don't like the look on your face at all.
well, no,
Well, Charlie's grimacing.
if there are accurate minutes for both the Policy Advisory and the Bylaw Committee, those are now being currently saved online.
Right.
Um,
And this is what we talked about the last time. I was asked to bring it up again. Sensing not
Yeah.
much support for this particular policy, we can just, we can just let
I
it
mean,
drop.
now all of this information is going to be available online to anybody who wants it. If anybody thinks that we can go back in history to
To find the ones that are.
generate minutes, there are no minutes from history. They're just non-existent.
Very
I
good.
feel comfortable that with the bylaws committee, for example, the minutes show what we discussed, what we accepted, what we rejected pretty clearly, very clearly, I think. So to Fran's point, if you have good meeting minutes, that should solve the issue.
Right, it's all
Yeah.
been preserved already. Okay, I will accept that. So then there were two new business. So the first one was pertaining to technology. So I'll read it to you as it was put forth in the minutes of that meeting. A policy for the district to update their technology and maintain it to the most current technological standards available to allow the district meetings to be recorded and broadcasted to the public. The technology should be easily accessible, audible, in order to encourage participation of the general public in person or remotely.
Yeah, okay. Ka-ching.
Well, that I understand that. I mean, if we're ever to return to in-person meetings and to maintain the ability to understand the meetings, there's got to be some way that it can be done. And I don't know that it would be that horribly expensive.
Well, you
I
have to
mean-
do something to change the sound quality of Freedom Hall, and so that's going to be not only expensive in my mind, but also I'm not sure that we want to change the interior of the hall. and
I
put
think it could be
baffles in
through other
and-
means, though. I mean, I understand that may be a possibility, but if that were the case, then that's obviously a non-starter. But there must be a technological solution that would fit this problem. I'm fairly confident that something might exist that would not be so prohibitively expensive, but could be. I mean, unless we really look into it, how could we possibly know? It couldn't be more expensive than buying however many iPads we have.
Actually, those were free.
Well, then there you go. I stand corrected. But at any rate, I personally think that it would be worthwhile. And if it is prohibitively expensive to do something like that, then obviously it wouldn't be worthwhile. But with the advance of technology and the fact that so many organizations have had to resort to this sort of thing over the last 2 years, there must be something that at least is worth researching. I don't know how you guys feel. That's my position anyway.
To date, in my conversations with over at Charlie's and with Jerry, and actually Lisa contacted Nantucket Sound and dealing with them, and they didn't have any suggestions as to how we could improve it because of the
Because of the nature of the building.
nature of the building. Yes.
Now, are you familiar with the whole Zoom room concept? Or any of you have ever looked into that? I looked into it briefly.
No.
That
What is
there-
it?
Well, I'm not 100% on the technical aspects of it, but it is something that people have used to accomplish the same end with the acoustics aside. Because it eliminates the acoustic nature of the room using the technology.
My thought is that if we can do this for a reasonable expense, we should. It's the latter part that's the problem. It's for
Yeah.
the reasonable expense. We have looked into this, and so far we haven't been able to find anything that works effectively. But in terms of should we try to do it? Like, yeah, I think that's yes.
So shall I look around? Can I be authorized to do that to see what I can come up with?
Sure thing. And can you come up with a donor?
Sure. I'm sure I can. We'll find someone that's alive out there. But I really think it could be accomplished for not an extreme expense, but I think it would really be worthwhile. I do. Because are we to continue meeting this way forever? I mean, not that I'm against it per se, but will we be allowed to meet this way forever?
No, I'm not sure something's going to change maybe in July. I don't know. I think that's going to depend on the COVID status.
Right. And so, I mean, just as a forward thinking, there must be something that we could at least investigate, that I will investigate to see
Okay.
if we can. I'll bring something back next month. And
All
if it is a boondoggle, which you all seem to believe it is, I'll be proven wrong, and that will be fine. So I'm used to that. That's good. And then so that was one. I don't know how you guys feel about that. We'll talk about it next month when we have some kind of reasonable idea of what it would entail. And then the third one was policy be adopted for the rotation of chairs annually, as the water commissioners do. And we've talked about this one before as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know, the whole thing about it, I'm not against that as a policy, but I don't think that if we were to adopt that kind of policy, that if some people be compelled to be the chair.
Well, I think that's part of the if you're looking for people to join the committee and then you tell them, well, at least for 1 year in your term, you're going to have to be the chair. And they go, no, I don't want to do that.
Right, that it would sit. So, I mean, if there were a policy where rotation would occur, but the person who would be in line for that rotation would have the right to say, yes, it is my turn, but
I'm sorry, I think you need to let the committees decide what they want to do for themselves. It's my understanding the water committee did it because nobody wanted to take it on for 3 years. So they decided to rotate it. And if that comes up in another committee where somebody doesn't want it, then they can rotate away. But I don't, there comes a point where you just can't keep on micromanaging committees and because somebody wants to be a chairman. Plus, that would have to be a bylaw change, I think, not just a policy.
It would have to be a bylaw change.
Yeah.
I agree. I'm inclined to let the committees make their decisions.
Yeah.
It strikes me as not a bad idea, but not necessarily something that needs to be mandated.
One of the proponents of this, said that, use an example of the town council doing that, but actually they don't do that. They have an election on a yearly basis for the president. And most of the time, the presidents are there for 2 years. A couple have stayed for 3. And to the best of my knowledge, there's no limitation for how long someone on the town council can have the presidency. So, but that's something that's, elected on a yearly basis, which is basically what we've been doing.
That all sounds good to me.
So, okay. We all set?
Well, that's that. That was my report.
Okay. Freedom Hall Landscaping. Sunday before last, I went to Freedom Hall and I got the district signs to put around the village announcing voting and, we'll be switched over to the meeting. And the lawn looked fine. And then the following Friday, I was coming back from someplace and drove by and the grass was last Thursday, and the grass was knee high. So I called up Outerland, who used to be Maffey, who's now Outerland, and asked why nobody was mowing the lawn. And our contractor run out and they hadn't notified us, which I thought was a little odd. Anybody that you have a contract with usually notifies you that it's about to lapse. So I've sent you all a copy of the proposal by Outerland, which the bottom line, and a copy of the email I was sent, which is the bottom line, the minimum amount for service is $5,000 per season. And if you add all this up, it does not come to, comes to about $4,000. So that problem, that being said, there are no landscape services to be had because nobody has enough people. And so there's you know, everybody's looking for somebody to do their landscaping. So I'm tempted just to, and then this doesn't include the snow and ice, which would be a separate contract in the fall. So
So what should we do then?
about the
Well, just,
lawn mowing,
yeah, are we gonna continue to look or commit to
So-
spending $5,000 for,
Fran, just so I understand the scope of this would be $5,000 a year for mowing.
for
Freedom
mowing,
Hall only.
no, spring cleanup, edging and bed preparation, mulch installation, mowing, summer pruning, and fall cleanup.
Okay. Materials included, I suppose.
So, yeah,
And what do we currently pay?
I'm not sure. I don't have a copy of the usually, we haven't had them usually they've just been mowing. And last year was up until last year, I was doing the mulching and the weeding. And then last year we had them do the mulching and the weeding. And I think the mowing was, Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't the mowing like $50 a week?
No, much more. We have currently spent 4,902 for our grounds and maintenance. The contract that you have in front of you sums to more than $5,000, leaving only 250 for snow removal,
Okay. Okay,
based on what you budgeted.
I'm sorry, Lisa, can you repeat that?
So currently we have spent $4,902 of our 5,000 budget for fiscal year 22. They have proposed, I added up the numbers, and Ray, please correct me, but I think the numbers that they presented in this new draft proposal add up to more than $5,000. And we've budgeted for fiscal year 23, 5,250. So that doesn't leave anything for snow removal.
but the first number you quoted, does that include snow removal or just,
Yes, it does.
yeah,
Yeah.
We had a giant snow removal year, for sure. But every time they remove snow or salt, they charge $93.
right, yeah,
That's not quite correct. And they'll do it a couple of times a day. And then also another fee for doing the sidewalk and the parking lot. And so it sometimes a couple, $200 to $300 per day with a snowstorm.
okay. So, I didn't want anyone to come to vote or come to the annual meeting and have to walk through grass. So I've taken care of having that done yesterday and today. But that's not gonna fly if we go around making calls and, try to locate somebody else and have them meet with us and come out and give us bids, and, that's gonna take more than a week. So,
I mean, where do we get the money, first of all, then to offset the budgetary shortfall that we will obviously have?
To spend less on one of the other categories.
Right.
yeah,
And I imagine that no place, at least a company to the scale of Outerland, is going to be any cheaper.
no,
Inflation and all, and how much they have to pay people at this point.
and I tried, that prior to us taking over, the lawn was being done and paid for by a local resident. And I tried to have that man continue, but he didn't have insurance, or any liability insurance or workman's comp. So, you know, we couldn't hire him. So we have to have people that are insured and have the proper credentials, to do the lawn.
Fran, just so you know, we have 7,000 budgeted for repairs, maintenance for buildings, and we've only spent 580. So there's plenty of money there.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be covering this personally,
Oh, no,
but thank you.
no, it's just a one-time deal, but I didn't want it to look bad for the meetings.
Well, Fran, thank you for that. And you absolutely, I agree with Lisa, should be reimbursed for that.
No. I had a kid do it, so
Well,
don't put that in the recording.
okay.
Not insured.
Yeah.
So I would just like to go with Outerland, and then maybe we can, you know, work on finding someone for the snow plowing, that might charge us a lesser rate. You know, but we need to start working on that now, because when I started asking, you know, about snow plowing around in August a few years ago, everybody was already booked up. And I suspect that it might be harder now because they have fewer people, which is the problem. But we can do whatever your pleasure is.
I'm fine with sticking with them for now. I doubt it'll be any cheaper anywhere, and the bidding and all that jazz.
Yeah.
It'll just be a heartache, and then we can reevaluate.
I'm okay with that. I think, Seth, you're right. We may need to reevaluate
Yeah.
next year, but let's see what this comes to. Will Outerland do both lawn maintenance and plowing then, or we're?
Yes, that's what we had the current contract with them for.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So I believe this is,
Probably ought to have a motion to accept that contract.
So moved.
Seconded.
just a second. So I guess this is just for 1 year. Nope. The scope of services performed shall be indicated here for a 2-year period. Is
Okay,
that okay?
With the
That-
same
that I-
price locked in.
yeah, I feel better about that, actually.
Because it's not going to get any cheaper
Yeah.
next year.
All right. So we've had a motion and it's been seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. I'll get that off to them tomorrow. Okay. So, streetlights. So, since forever, we've had Siemens doing the maintenance for our streetlights. And as I told you, several meetings ago, Siemens has been purchased by someone, and they're no longer going to be in the streetlight maintenance business. So I believe our contract was supposed to expire like in December, and it got extended until June. So the Cape Light Compact put out a RFP for streetlight maintenance. And last week, they had meetings about, we had two companies that responded. One is a Pine Ridge Technologies. They're in Massachusetts. And the other is Ardern, and they're in Rhode Island. So Some of the main things we're concerned about in the request for bids, proposals for bids, was the time insurances for, services, detailed response time for repairing lighting, specifically addressed service to all parts of territory, Cape and Vineyard, current warranty policy if applicable. Will high pressure sodium lighting costs be included in the monthly charge? If so, any exceptions and or requested edits to outdoor lighting operation and maintenance agreements provided. And so those were some of the important items that we were concerned with. The Siemens last bid for monthly cost was 45 cents per light. Pine Ridge varied from $3 to $10 based on town and mix of lights, which is if they're any sodium based. We don't have any. And our Durham did not offer due to the volatility of the market. Then for a service charge, Siemens currently charged $170. Didn't get any answers from Ardern and Pine Ridge. Ardern, which is, as I said, is in Rhode Island, said it for a journeyman electrician, lineman, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. The charge was $100. For an apprentice to go along with them is $65. They didn't give us a rate for using a bucket truck. And for Pine Ridge, they gave us a rate of $169 for an electrician with a utility bucket truck, and an apprentice helper rate at $111. The people at the Cape Light contacts are going to check with Ardern. They might not, they have these lower fees, and they might not know that in Massachusetts, they have to follow the prevailing wage for those charges. For overtime for emergency, the Siemens current is $200. For Ardern, it was for the electrician $140 and apprentice $100. Pine Ridge was $221 for the electrician with a bucket truck, overtime nights and Saturdays, and $265 for an electrician with a bucket trucks Sundays and holidays. So next was a nighttime audit. We've never had that done, which is that they drive around and check to make sure all our lights are working. And fortunately, our residents will give us a call when there's a problem with the lights. We just had contact from Siemens asking if we wanted a nighttime audit, and I believe it was stated to be $283 to drive around.
Excuse me, Fran, it was that per hour with a minimum fee of 4 hours. So it's closer to
2,400.
900.
Yeah, okay. Ardern didn't give us a nighttime audit rate, and Pine Ridge says it was 80. All of these are per hour. Cost for Ardern for 35 to 40 foot insulated bucket trucks, $25. A crane 5 to 10 tons with an operator, $150. Pole truck with a pole auger with operator, $150. Transfer existing mast arm with fixture from old pole, $450. Standard markup for material, 5%. For Pine Ridge, the nighttime audit is 80. A crane 5 to 10 ton crane is $263, and the standard markup is 15%. So none of the bids included price police detail, or fees from utility. Ferry fees noted for Pine Ridge to get to the vineyard. Propose 1 hour for travel each way, but no travel costs to and from Woods Hole. Arden would propose the same pricing for initial term 3 years and then subject to Boston CPI. Pine Ridge proposes annual increase based on CPI or periodic percentage increases. They held, the compact held 3 meetings to go over the bids of both companies. The Arden said that they would leave a bucket truck on the vineyard rather than bring it back and forth. Pine Ridge didn't want to do that because it's hard to maintain it, and they could use it elsewhere. So pretty much everybody, all the basically heads of the DPWs from the towns thought that Pine Ridge was the better choice. And so there were questions that people had that were sent, and we got some answers. The important one being was that Pine Ridge thought that they would be negotiating cost with each individual town or district, which isn't what was done before. And that's the important part. So at the front of the packet that I sent, you'll see the timeline for all of this. But vendor selection was just estimated to be May 25th. And we'll probably be having meetings in June, once again, to pick a provider for the services. So.
And Fran, is it fair to say the way this work is Compact or Cape Cod Compact is going to pick one of these bids, and then we will be able to choose to use the services under that contract?
Yeah, basically,
Okay.
but I don't know who else we would go to if we didn't.
Yeah, no, yes, I completely
think-
understand. I just want to make sure I understand how the process works.
Well, actually, I thought I sent everybody the times for the Zoom meetings, which granted were in the middle of the day.
Right,
But, basically that we're going through them, and, people are noting their preferences as they went through the 3 meetings that they held last week. And
got it.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think the Pine Ridge group may be run by people who used to work for Siemens, who are familiar with the territory. So
Okay,
that's
all right.
I think I lost my agenda. So any other
Was there any action on the school committee at all in the last little while?
Yeah, we had a meeting of the school committee, I guess it was last week, to bring everyone up to speed. Basically, not sure if this has been confirmed yet, but we're aiming for another meeting on June 1st with the attorneys there, from both the town and Mark Boudreau on our behalf. Jackie, Jim, and I did have a conversation with Mark to kind of bring him up to speed He is going to review the conservation restriction that was initially drafted by Mark Robinson. There will be some kind of transfer document, basically covering topics that aren't covered by the conservation restriction, and there will be a deed. There are still several topics, mostly related to hazardous materials, and allocating responsibility for those that are still in play and still significant. The next step is for the town to get an approval not required from the planning board, which they hope to do in the next month or so, and then bring the transfer before the town council, which requires 2/3 majority vote, and there has to be 2 readings. So that's where we stand. I am hopeful that we will be able to close this deal. Mark Boudreau did suggest that it is highly likely that we need a special meeting to kind of accept the deal, that we already have approval to negotiate a deal. We never said anything to the district about a conservation restriction because we didn't know that was in the offing. Although I want to point out this conservation restriction runs from the town to the district. So it's mostly them promising what they will do, but also includes important caveats about what they will continue to be allowed to do with the property that remains with them. So that's kind of a long-winded way of saying I think we're getting very close, significant. Couple of hazardous material issues need to be resolved, but we're working to get it closed in the next few months.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I found, I'm going to be contacting Nauset Environmental Services to see if they can just give us a quote on the asbestos in the dirt, which DJ said at the last meeting that the way that's usually handled, instead of removing the dirt, is it's just encased in 4 or 5 feet of more dirt.
Right.
And
again, it's very simple. If we decide to tear the building down, you
Bury it all.
yeah,
you remove the building from above it and pour 4 or 5 feet of dirt on it, and you're done, basically. And Fran, just to that point, like, all we're really asking for Nauset or whoever else to do is just, we have the Habib report, and we just want them to say whether this recent discovery of asbestos in the dirt substantially changes Habib's assessment of what needs to be done.
okay.
And if so, how?
Okay. So,
if anyone is interested in using this building for some use, we should be encouraging people to come to us now with whatever proposals they have. And I guess that would include the fire district too, which at least has in the past expressed interest. But there's no reason that process can't be underway, before we close the deal. That is, if people need to create some kind of consensus about what they want to do with it, now's the time.
Has there been have there been any public observers of the meetings at all of late? Has anybody been taking interest who's outside of the committee? They're open meetings, obviously, right?
Yeah.
I don't think so. Carol is saying, who exactly should people come to with their interest? And I think the answer to that question is the Prudential Committee in the first instance. If nothing else, though, that we can identify groups who have an interest, if any.
Well, you know, once we have possession of it, I know for a fact that the fire department has an interest and would like to, you know, see a portion of that building reused, remodeled for a fire station. The water people would like to use a portion of the property, or they, you know, suggested for some instructional demonstration, septic systems, water garden stuff. And so, you know, we have money to for space needs to go out and have it looked at and find out the cost of, you know, rehabbing it for a fire station and, you know, district offices and whatever else that, you know, somebody might come up with and think that they would want to use the building for.
Right, right.
Well, maybe as we get, I noticed the long range planning committee, maybe at that time when we start getting those meetings together, maybe it will become more apparent as we get our whole circle our wagons or whatever and start talking about this in earnest.
Yeah, because that is another significant capital expenditure that is, that will be the first one that we need to grapple with.
Clearly going to be a huge cost. So.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I was really struck by the article in the Cape Cod Times about the Barnstable filtration plant that went from 13 million to 20 million. I don't know if that was just bad planning or if costs are really skyrocketing like that, because
Costs have really skyrocketed like that.
They have,
Jeez.
at least in my experience anyway.
Yeah.
It's really remarkable.
You know, for anything that's being done, if you see you know, the fire stations that have been done by Falmouth and other places, you know, or Empora, can't remember, I think it was Eastham that had proposed a new municipal building that went from a couple of million to 10 or something. So.
Because even with the possibility of demolishing the building, we with all kinds of caveats throughout $1 million. I mean, you know, it could be closer to 2.
Yeah.
If those other situations are similar. And the other thing that one of the reasons that it's important to get things moving along on this is that the building was not heated last year.
That's right.
It would be an expense. And we're also thinking of, you know, the oil tank, probably the oil burner not being the appropriate way to heat it. So if we're going to use that building, we probably need to, it will continue to deteriorate if it's not heated. So at some point, if 2 years from now or 3 years from now, we have lots of great ideas, it might not matter because the building may have deteriorated so much that it's not worthwhile.
Well, that's that.
Okay.
That's that.
So.
There was some talk about a discussion at the annual meeting about this. I'm happy to give kind of the same 3-minute summary that I just did, if people think that's helpful or necessary.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
think,
people want to hear about it. I'm sure that there are those who will. I don't know. There's no warrants that really pertain to this.
no.
No, there's not. Well, the one for the hazardous material, $28,000 for hazardous material.
Well, that you could sneak it in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can mention it during that if there was any discussion about that.
Because I'm sure someone will be like, oh, and speaking of that.
Yeah,
As-
exactly. Oh. All right,
Okay, so everybody vote tomorrow, 4 to 8 p.m.
will
Absolutely.
do.
And we'll see you at Wednesday. Oh,
Oh,
wait, sorry. Carol wants to know if
comment.
public comment is only via chat. You know, yes. What would you like?
Can you see those chats
Um,
or do you need me to read them?
Why don't you read them?
Okay, the first one from Carol is when Ray says reserve fund, general fund, and special revenue fund, is this the same as the free cash fund? Where can I get a better description on all these items?
See if I can clarify this quickly. The special revenue fund is a separate fund from the general fund. Free cash is a calculation within the general fund that measures the excess of revenue and the shortfall of expenditures versus budgets. So that if you underspend your budget, you are contributing to free cash in the general fund. If you collect more revenue for water and ambulance, you contribute to free cash. Tax revenue is something that's separate. It's not added in directly to free cash, but there's an indirect penalty because if you don't meet budget, which is the tax levy, that means that what you didn't achieve collections remains in receivables, and tax receivables are generally deducted from the calculation of free cash. So general fund and special revenue fund are different funds that the district operates. Free cash is a calculation within the general fund of positive budget variances. Does that help, Carol?
Go ahead and talk, Carol. That's fine.
Thank you, Ray. That was helpful. Just the last one is reserve fund, because a lot of times I hear similar terms used for, like as general. I understand now that
It's really not a
free
fund.
cash
Carol.
free cash is part of the general fund. What is the reserve fund?
The reserve fund really isn't a fund. It is that is the name that was given to it by the state legislature or the state regulations. It's an unfortunate description. It is really a reserve account within the general fund that is under the control of the Prudential Committee to address budget variances for unanticipated events.
So
It is
similar
the
to the
rainy
free,
day fund.
No,
same as the
No,
free cash
no, it
fund.
is not
no,
a,
it's not same as
It's not rainy day.
the stabilization fund is our rainy day fund. The
Right.
reserve, so-called reserve fund is simply an account under the control of the Prudential Committee to address budget variances within the year. It goes
Okay.
away at the end of the year. Stabilization or the rainy day fund is forever.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
And do you fund the reserve fund in the annual budget?
Yes,
Yes.
you do. It is
And that's
Article,
the $45,000.
yes, that is correct.
Okay, great. And but free cash happens when there's additional excess cash, and that's also controlled by the Prudential.
No, no, free cash is generally controlled by the district, And free cash is after we close the books at the end of the year. We add up what we spent versus budget, what we collected versus budget. And the
Got it.
positive variances equal the first step in free cash. It is like retained earnings in the corporate world.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is Carol's second comment of 5. And this refers to when we were talking about technology for Freedom Hall's audio system. She said the Osterville Library has a system that works well for hybrid meetings.
And the Osterville Library has money coming out of its ears.
Carol also said, could we
I'll
see if
investigate.
the library, church could add Freedom Hall on their services? I think that comment related to grounds maintenance.
Landscaping, yeah.
Yeah,
The answer to that is no.
I mean, in future years, maybe we find out what those people use for their landscape contractor and try to all get on the same day in service, and maybe you guys could get a better deal. It was just an idea.
okay. Carol's next comment is, who exactly should people come to with interest in the school?
Prudential
Mark
Committee.
answered that. Mark answered that with Prudential.
All right. So I believe that is all the chat comments we have that haven't been unanswered.
Okay, I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Is
So moved.
there a
Second.
second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all.
Of course. I'll see you
Thank you.
all at 6:30. Are we doing